Havana, Cuba, March 1985. Inside the Gran Teatro, the audience rose for Valentina Ortiz, Cuba's most celebrated ballerina. She bowed under crystal chandeliers, meters from Fidel Castro himself. To the world, she was revolutionary art. But hidden behind her emerald earrings was a wire thinner than thread, CIA audio microphone J7, activated with a single controlled breath. Everyone believed Valentina belonged to the revolution. But for 9 years she had carried America into rooms no foreign spy could penetrate. What she heard would reshape Cold War intelligence calculations far beyond the Caribbean. This is the true story of Operation Silent Arabesque. Valentina Ortiz was born in Havana in 1961, 2 years after Castro's forces seized control. The revolution consumed everything: schools, churches, theaters. By age 9, state ballet scouts identified her as exceptional, not just for technique, for memory, discipline, and what instructors called unnatural emotional control. She could dance Giselle while mentally cataloging every face in the audience. Those traits made her perfect for ballet. They would later make her lethal as an intelligence asset. By early 1984, Valentina was the prima ballerina of the Gran Teatro de la Habana, Cuba's most prestigious stage. Fidel Castro personally attended her premieres. Party ministers requested private performances at their residences. Foreign delegations dined backstage while she changed costumes mere feet away. She moved through Cuba's inner circle like oxygen, essential, invisible, trusted. The break came in July 1984. Her mother, Valentina Ortiz, was diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer. Cuban hospitals had no viable treatment options. The regime denied exit visa requests. Valentina appealed through official channels, quietly, respectfully. 3 weeks later, she received contact from an American intermediary during a cultural exchange in Mexico City. The message was direct: cooperation for medical access. No promises, no threats, just leverage presented as opportunity. Her defining capability in operational terms: the ability to perform Swan Lake flawlessly while listening to restricted conversations, remembering technical details, and maintaining complete emotional deception simultaneously. Associates described her as serene, never anxious. Handlers would later call this her most dangerous weapon. By late 1984, United States intelligence faced a concrete wall in Cuba. Traditional human intelligence penetrations failed consistently. Cuban counterintelligence, trained by Soviet advisors, operated with brutal efficiency. Signals intelligence captured fragments. Satellite imagery showed buildings, not intentions. Soviet military advisors moved freely through Havana, while American eyes remained functionally blind to strategic planning occurring 90 miles from Florida. CIA doctrine shifted toward what internal memos called access over ideology. Recruit those already trusted by the target system, not those who oppose it. Cultural elites were classified as low suspicion, high access assets. A ballerina encountered less scrutiny than a scientist. Fame provided natural explanation for privilege. Beauty disarmed suspicion. Valentina's access was architecturally unmatched. She entered rooms swept of listening devices. Security guards ignored her jewelry, costume pieces, they assumed. Ministers and generals spoke openly around her during post-performance receptions, assuming loyalty purchased through privilege. She represented Cuba abroad. She dined with Politburo families. She was, according to state television, the revolution's cultural jewel. Obstacles were severe and specific. Cuban counterintelligence maintained constant surveillance on anyone with international contact. No secure communication channels existed for someone who could never leave Cuba without suspicion. Traditional dead drops were impossible. Valentina's movements were too visible, too documented. Any handler meeting carried catastrophic exposure risk. The asset would need to operate almost entirely alone. The trigger came in October 1984. The CIA flew Valentina Ortiz to Miami under fabricated medical parole documentation. Chemotherapy began at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Treatment bought her 2 years of life. Valentina received confirmation through the Mexico City intermediary. 7 days later, she signaled acceptance. No written agreement, no dramatic recruitment, just a decision made in a Havana apartment while her mother suffered 800 miles away. Intelligence services had tracked Valentina peripherally since 1982. By October 1984, CIA analysts concluded she represented the highest value access opportunity inside Cuba since the revolution. The authorization to proceed came in November 1984 under Restricted Operational Directive HVA 377. Compartmentalization was absolute. Fewer than 12 people knew Asset V-13's true identity. Within 4 months, all elements would be in position. But first, Valentina needed to learn how to disappear while remaining completely visible. During initial training sessions in Madrid, disguised as a January 1985 ballet masterclass, Valentina experienced what case officers call legend drift. Her instructors presented scenarios, photographing documents during intermission, activating audio equipment while applying stage makeup, maintaining composure during counterintelligence spot checks. In one exercise, she was required to memorize a 15-digit alphanumeric code while performing 32 fouettes. She completed both tasks without error. Then she sat in the practice studio and didn't speak for 40 minutes. Her handler, a CIA officer using the work name Rafael, asked what was wrong. Valentina said she kept forgetting which version of herself was real: the ballerina who loved Cuba or the agent who betrayed it. Rafael's assessment, documented in operational files declassified in 2009. Subject displays optimal compartmentalization, capability with managed psychological cost. Proceed with operational integration. The clinical language masked a human reality. Valentina was 23 years old, terrified and committed. The mission continued. Intercepted communications from March 1985 reveal Fidel Castro discussing Valentina's upcoming performance at the Gran Teatro with his cultural minister. He described her as proof that revolution creates beauty, not destroys it. Analysts noted nothing operationally relevant. Castro mentioned wanting his grandchildren to see her dance before she grew too old for leading roles. When Valentina learned of this intercept years later, after defection, she reportedly said nothing for several minutes. Then she asked if Castro's grandchildren had indeed attended. They had. She nodded once and changed the subject. By March 1985, the operation entered its execution phase. Valentina's mother stabilized under American medical care. Cuban authorities showed no suspicion. The window was indefinite but fragile. One missed signal, one nervous gesture, one unexplained absence could trigger investigation. Valentina stepped onto the Gran Teatro stage on March 14, 1985, wearing CIA equipment for the first time. The performance was Giselle. The audience included 3 Politburo members, 2 Soviet advisors, and Fidel Castro. Elapsed time until first intelligence capture, 47 minutes. The CIA designated Valentina as Asset V-13 under Operational Directive HVA 317. Training occurred during carefully orchestrated cultural tours between January 1985 and June 1986. Madrid provided the initial equipment familiarization. Prague offered advanced tradecraft during a supposed choreography residency. East Berlin, ironically, became the testing ground for equipment functionality under Warsaw Pact surveillance conditions. Her cover never changed. That was the doctrinal foundation. No aliases, no forged passports, no elaborate backstory requiring maintenance. The disguise was fame itself. Valentina Ortiz, prima ballerina, required no explanation for traveling, for carrying technical equipment disguised as costume jewelry, for possessing recording devices labeled as rehearsal materials. Her legend was her life. Equipment was minimalist by necessity. Jewelry-concealed microphones were embedded in 3 pairs of earrings and 2 brooches. Modeled J7 audio capture devices manufactured specifically for close proximity recording. Activation required controlled jaw tension, allowing Valentina to trigger recording during conversation without hand movements. A Minox B camera, standard CIA issue since the 1960s, was hidden inside a makeup compact modified with a false bottom. The camera measured 3.2 inches long. Film capacity was 50 exposures per cartridge. Signal dead drops used ballet shoe bags marked with specific color tape configurations. Blue tape on the left strap indicated material ready for collection. Yellow indicated emergency contact, request. Red meant abort and extract. Communication with Raphael occurred through burst transmission audio messages concealed in modified cassette players labeled as rehearsal recordings. Valentina would record intelligence summaries in verbal shorthand. Raphael would receive the cassettes through intermediaries in Mexico City, never directly. The team was deliberately lean. 1 primary handler, Raphael. 1 technical officer maintaining equipment through indirect channels. 1 3-person analyst cell at CIA headquarters in Langley, tracking her intelligence under file designation HVA 317. Compartmentalization meant even Raphael didn't know Valentina's initial recruitment leverage. He knew her work name. He knew her capability. He didn't know about Elena Ortiz in Miami. The planning consumed 8 months. By September 1985, equipment had been successfully infiltrated into Cuba through diplomatic channels and passed to Valentina during a Canadian embassy cultural reception. She had 18 months before the next scheduled international tour. The surveillance box was closing. She needed to produce results before Cuban counterintelligence or simple bad luck ended everything. Access deepened organically through late 1985 and early 1986. Valentina's fame grew. So did her invitations. In February 1986, she performed at a private residence belonging to Defense Minister Fidel Castro. The event was intimate. Perhaps 40 guests. Guards swept the venue but ignored Valentina's costume jewelry. Why would a ballerina wear surveillance equipment to a performance? During a 17-minute period while guests dined, Valentina changed costumes in a bedroom converted to a dressing area. Through the walls, she heard 2 Soviet advisors discussing troop rotation schedules for Cuba's military mission in Angola. She activated the J7 microphone in her left earring. The conversation continued for 9 minutes. Details included unit designations, supply route vulnerabilities, and advisor housing locations near Luanda. Valentina memorized unit codes. She photographed nothing. Too risky. After the performance, she passed the cassette during a rehearsal the following week. Raphael received it in Mexico City 11 days later. Complications arose quickly. In August 1986, Cuban counterintelligence introduced random security sweeps of the Gran Teatro, including dressing rooms. The searches were not targeted. Valentina wasn't under specific suspicion, but any search could expose her. She adapted immediately. Film cartridges from the Minox camera were hidden inside rosin containers used for ballet shoes. The powdery texture masked the cartridges. Even if searched, they appeared to be extra rosin blocks. The microphone earrings were worn during performances, removed immediately after, and stored in her apartment inside a hollowed-out ballet bar, a piece of equipment too large and mundane to attract attention. The execution window widened dramatically in March 1989. Soviet officers began attending Gran Teatro performances with increased frequency, often accompanied by Cuban military leadership. The topic of Angola surfaced repeatedly. Cuba's military mission there was officially winding down. Soviet support was officially being withdrawn. The conversations Valentina recorded told a different story, one of delayed withdrawals, continued supply shipments, and advisor rotations extending into 1990 and beyond. Risk peaked in May 1989, when Valentina was formally invited to join the Communist Party. The invitation came from the Minister of Culture personally. Refusal would signal ideological doubt. Acceptance would lock her deeper into the system, with increased scrutiny, increased visibility, and mandatory political education sessions where questions might be asked. She consulted with Raphael through the cassette system. His response was direct: accept, attend minimally, cite performance schedule as limitation. Valentina joined the party in June 1989. She attended 3 political meetings total over 4 years. No one questioned her commitment. She was Cuba's cultural ambassador. Her loyalty was assumed. June 12, 1991. 20:48 hours. Valentina attended a post-performance dinner at the Ministry of Armed Forces headquarters. The event honored visiting Angolan officials. 60 guests, full security sweep. Valentina wore the J7 earrings and carried the Minox compact. The dinner proceeded normally. Speeches, toasts, formal pleasantries. At 2100 hours, she excused herself to change from her performance costume into evening wear. The dressing area was a converted office. Temporary. She entered alone. On the desk was a leather briefing folder, left unattended. Later analysis suggested it belonged to a Cuban military attaché who had stepped outside to smoke. Valentina had 94 seconds, the average time her costume changes required, already established as normal by security observers. She opened the folder. Inside were handwritten maps showing Soviet advisor quarters near Luanda, Angola. Detailed building layouts, supply depot locations, security rotation schedules. She photographed 6 pages. Each photograph took between 8 and 11 seconds. Focus, frame, shoot, advance film. Total time, 52 seconds. She returned the folder to its exact position, noting the angle, the placement of a pen beside it. She completed her costume change. Elapsed time from entering the room to exiting, 87 seconds. The attaché returned 90 seconds later. Security logs noted nothing unusual. Tradecraft during this period was precise and paranoid. Earrings were activated only during applause bursts or music, when ambient noise masked the faint mechanical click. Camera shots were timed to coincide with moments when Valentina was expected to be alone. Costume changes, brief restroom visits, moments backstage. Film was passed during intermissions using a method called brush contact. Another, dancer, unaware of her role, would take Valentina's makeup bag, marked with chalk on the handle. Believing she was helping with quick changes, the bag would be returned during curtain calls. Inside, the film cartridge had been replaced with an identical-looking rosin block. The vulnerability exploited was psychological, not technical. No one searched the ballerina because no one believed the ballerina was dangerous. Beauty disarmed. Fame provided immunity. Valentina moved through secure spaces the way celebrity has always moved through power, welcomed, admired, fundamentally underestimated. Between August 1989 and December 1993, Valentina recorded over 120 hours of classified conversation. The intelligence included Soviet military planning in Angola, Cuban troop strength assessments, internal Politburo disagreements about economic reforms, and details of Cuban intelligence operations in Central America. Each recording was passed through the cassette system. Each film cartridge moved through the ballet shoe dead drop. Rafael received the material in Mexico City, sometimes weeks after capture. The lag was operationally acceptable. The intelligence was strategic, not tactical. It didn't require real-time response. Her intelligence confirmed Cuban operational control in Angola, continued long after official public withdrawals announced in 1989. Soviet advisors remained in place through 1991. Supply routes stayed active. The information was used in United States-backed negotiations with Angola and in diplomatic pressure campaigns highlighting Cuban commitments, contradicting public statements. The intelligence also revealed internal Soviet-Cuban tensions over resource allocation as the Soviet Union itself collapsed. By mid-1993, Cuban counterintelligence grew suspicious, not of Valentina specifically, but systemically. Too much information was leaking. Sources were unclear. The Ministry of Interior increased surveillance on cultural figures with international exposure. Random searches increased. Travel was scrutinized more carefully. Valentina's last dead drop occurred in November 1993. The material passed successfully, but she signaled yellow tape, emergency contact request. Rafael's response came in January 1994. Prepare for extraction. The window was narrow. Valentina had a scheduled performance in Mexico City in March 1994. It would be her last opportunity for a non-suspicious exit. Any other method, defection during a European tour, sudden disappearance in Havana, would trigger immediate investigation. Her family would face consequences. The Mexico City performance provided cover. March 18, 1994. 19:30 hours, Valentina performed at the Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City. The performance was Carmen. Cuban security accompanied her. 2 officers, both visible in the audience. The plan was simple. During the final curtain call, Valentina would exit stage left instead of stage right. A CIA officer would meet her at a service entrance. A car was positioned 2 blocks away. She would have approximately 4 minutes before Cuban security realized she wasn't returning. 21:42 hours. Final curtain call. Applause. Valentina bowed. She exited stage left. The hallway was empty, as promised. She walked 40 meters. A door opened. A woman, not Rafael, someone new, said one word: arabesque. Valentina followed her outside. A Honda sedan was running. They drove 17 minutes to a safe house in the Polanco district. Total time from stage to safety, 22 minutes. Cuba announced her disappearance as a health retreat the following day. Privately, arrests followed within a week. 2 Gran Teatro administrators were interrogated. One, a stage manager named Carlos Mendez, disappeared into state security custody. Released documents suggest that he was suspected of facilitating dead drops, though he was almost certainly innocent. He was released after 8 months. Another theater employee, whose name remains redacted in available files, was never publicly accounted for. By March 20th, 1994, Cuban intelligence understood Valentina Ortiz had defected. What they didn't understand, and wouldn't for years, was the scope of her intelligence collection. Initial investigations focused on her international tours, assuming she passed material to foreign contacts during travels. They didn't suspect the Gran Teatro itself. They didn't suspect the earrings, the makeup compact, the ballet shoe bags. Every lead ended in fragmentary speculation, suggesting either sophisticated tradecraft or internal investigative limitations. Likely both. Cuba's official statement described Valentina's departure as a personal health crisis requiring extended treatment abroad. State media reported she was receiving care for unspecified medical issues. The story was transparent to anyone familiar with defection patterns. But transparency wasn't the point. The narrative allowed the regime to avoid acknowledging a propaganda failure. Their most celebrated cultural figure had chosen exile over revolution. Suspected American involvement was implied, but never directly stated. Cuban foreign ministry officials issued carefully worded criticisms of imperialist cultural manipulation, without naming Valentina specifically. The denials were diplomatic theater. Behind closed doors, counterintelligence conducted damage assessments. What had she accessed? What had she heard? What did they need to assume was compromised? The questions had no complete answers. The operation achieved its primary tactical objective: sustained intelligence collection from within Cuba's inner circle. Material provided by Asset V-13 included strategic assessments of Cuban-Soviet military cooperation, details on Cuban operations in Angola and Central America, insights into Politburo internal dynamics, and personality profiles of key leadership figures. Secondary benefits included validation of equipment functionality in denied environments and proof of concept for cultural cover as an intelligence platform. Strategic impact reshaped United States' understanding of Cuban military reach, particularly in Africa during the late Cold War period. Valentina's intelligence confirmed that official Cuban withdrawal announcements from Angola were operationally misleading. Forces remained. Advisors stayed embedded. Supply lines continued operating. This intelligence informed American diplomatic strategy and regional policy calculations in Angola, Mozambique, and Nicaragua during the early 1990s. It validated human intelligence collection over satellite reliance in denied states where access mattered more than imagery. The cost was calculated in lives and relationships. Diplomatically, the operation provided Cuba with renewed justification for counterintelligence crackdowns. Relations with the United States, already hostile, gained another grievance for official propaganda. Operationally, the exposure of Valentina's defection forced CIA to assume Cuban awareness of equipment methods: J7 microphones, Minox cameras, cassette burst transmission systems. Each technique was retired from active use in Cuba. Handlers adapted. New methods replaced old ones. For individuals, consequences were permanent. Carlos Mendez, the stage manager, lost 8 months to interrogation and carried the suspicion of collaboration for the rest of his life, despite probable innocence. The second detained employee disappeared into a system designed for disappearance. Valentina's extended family faced social stigma and reduced access to career opportunities within Cuba's state-controlled economy. Her father, a retired dock worker, was questioned repeatedly and died in 1997 without seeing his daughter again. For Valentina herself, the cost was identity. She lost her country, her career as a public performer, and her name. In Miami, she taught ballet at a private studio under the assumed name Maria Vega. Students knew her as a former dancer from Latin America, nothing more. She lived in a modest apartment in Little Havana. She taught 5 classes per week. She attended her mother's funeral in 1996. Valentina Ortiz died of cancer recurrence 2 years after Valentina's defection. The chemotherapy had bought time, not survival. CIA assessment was that Operation SILENT ARABESQUE validated access-based recruitment over ideology-based recruitment in denied environments. Valentina had no inherent opposition to Cuban socialism. She had a sick mother and leverage. The operation became a case study in non-traditional asset recruitment, taught at the CIA training facility in Virginia. Art, culture, and access re-entered agency doctrine as viable intelligence vectors. Pretty women with backstage credentials could outperform trained operatives with false identities. Whether this operational success justified its human cost depends entirely on your framework for evaluation. From one perspective, the CIA exploited a desperate woman's love for her dying mother to extract secrets from a sovereign nation. Gratitude was weaponized. Medical care became leverage. Valentina's entire adult life was spent in fear, deception, and isolation, culminating in permanent exile from everything she knew. 2 Cuban citizens were detained. 1 disappeared. Her family faced consequences for her choices. From another perspective, Valentina chose agency within an impossible situation. She could watch her mother die while Cuban bureaucracy prioritized ideology over compassion. Or she could act. The regime that celebrated her restricted her family's access to basic medical care. She didn't betray a free society. She exposed a system that commodified her talent for propaganda while offering nothing when she needed help. The intelligence she provided revealed military operations Cuba was publicly denying. Information other nations deserved to know when making strategic decisions. Was Valentina Ortiz a traitor who betrayed the revolution that trained her? Or a daughter who refused to accept her mother's death sentence from a bureaucracy that valued control over humanity? Was she a spy recruited through emotional manipulation, or an agent who recognized her access as currency and spent it deliberately? The answer reveals less about Operation SILENT ARABESQUE than about how you define loyalty when systems demand it without reciprocity. The question intelligence historians still debate. When intelligence is won through beauty, access, and emotional leverage, who is really being used? Valentina used American resources to save her mother and ultimately herself. The CIA used Valentina's desperation to penetrate Cuba's inner circle. Cuba used Valentina's talent for international prestige while denying her family basic medical access. Everyone extracted value. Everyone paid costs. The operation succeeded by every measurable metric except the moral one. What's your take on whether Valentina made the right choice? Was she justified in trading intelligence for her mother's life? Or does espionage built on family medical leverage represent coercion dressed as opportunity? Drop your perspective in the comments. If this story made you reconsider how intelligence agencies recruit assets in denied environments, hit that like button and share. The moral complexity of operations like Silent Arabesque doesn't resolve cleanly, which is precisely why they continue teaching it at Langley 30 years later.